From Studio 3B in New York, here again is Jane Pauley.
Air travel may still be the safest way to go, but the air traveler's sense of security has been tested of late. Most recently last weekend, when hijackers were able to get an axe on board an Ethiopian Airlines jet before it crashed into the sea. Terrorists put a bomb aboard Pan Am 103. And now comes word of the latest FBI scenario for the crash of TWA Flight 800. A saboteur may have tampered with the jet. Following that crash, many airports around the world tightened security. How could a terrorist get through now? As a result of a 3-month hidden camera investigation, Dateline discovered it may be no more difficult than landing a job at an airport. Tonight, Chris Hansen shows us just how close a terrorist could get.
Look at all this.
You're looking at the cockpit of a jet airliner at New Jersey's Newark International Airport. And the man taking these pictures with a hidden camera has no business being here. He's an intruder, yet he was able to roam freely through airplanes, along tarmacs, and through baggage and cargo areas. This at a time when you'd think security would be at an all-time high, and when any lapse could lead to disaster. Brian Jenkins is an internationally recognized expert on terrorism.
I believe that the terrorist threat to the United States now is real, and it is high.
Jenkins is a member of the Vice President's Commission on Aviation Security and Safety. Formed in the aftermath of the TWA Flight 800 disaster, the commission investigated virtually every aspect of airline safety. One of its key findings, the need for better screening and more extensive background checks for airport employees.
Where security begins to break down is with the insider who will provide information to the adversaries, who will be a confederate of the adversaries, or in fact, maybe the adversary himself or herself. The biggest threat comes from the insider. That's always the case.
Would it be possible for a terrorist to become an insider, to get a job as an airport employee and infiltrate the ranks of those who service and protect U.S. airliners? During a 3-month investigation, Dateline decided to test the system by sending 2 producers undercover to apply for airport jobs. How easily could they get hired? And could they gain access to secure areas? You may be concerned, as we were, that by doing this, we might be providing a how-to manual for terrorists. But the Federal Aviation Administration's own airport security video makes it clear that terrorists already know where the weaknesses are.
Terrorist groups are organized. They could get their agents hired by a service that gets them proper IDs and access to the aircraft.
Our producers applied for jobs at 2 of the world's biggest airports, Newark in New Jersey and Hartsfield in Atlanta. We made up fictitious work histories, and we set up phone lines and answering machines to see if anyone would check our producers' references. With only one exception, no one bothered. At Newark Airport in New Jersey, our Dateline producer was hired on the spot, no references checked, by Ogden Aviation, one of the largest airport service companies in the country, providing security, baggage handling, and food services at almost every airport in the United States. Jobs that give its employees access to the most sensitive areas of airports.
When could you start? We need you to start as soon as possible. Tomorrow?
But wait a minute. The FAA regulations are very clear. Before a company can hire someone to work in a secure area of an airport, the company must review 10 years of the candidate's employment history. It must also verify in writing or by phone the last 5 years. But when Dateline applied for work, that didn't happen at all. No attempts were made to check our producers' references.
I walk in and 5 minutes later I have a job. This is great.
You were lucky. You were lucky, hon.
He was issued this company ID, which in an airport can be a passport to places you would never imagine. Although he was specifically hired to drive this electric car, within 2 days he was asked to work at the security checkpoint, hand-checking bags.
I'm going to check this, okay, sir?
He was supposed to be trained, but instead was left in the dark. He even warned other airport workers that he didn't know what he was doing.
But I haven't even been trained.
This airline supervisor didn't seem surprised.
Had me already opening bags and going through it all.
I must have been shorthanded.
This supervisor offered obvious advice.
I haven't been trained on what the heck to look for.
Well, anything in this case, if there's a weapon in there, well, I would assume you would know what maybe what a pistol looks like.
A pistol,
Yeah.
a weapon, okay.
And when he told this Port Authority policeman, the officer joked with us that our producer may be up to no good.
In a right away, you're looking for a bag. You can put anything in the bag.
That's right. Can you take your coat and follow me? I'm going to do a hand inspection.
And he went to his own supervisor with his concerns. Instead of getting him the proper training,
Come on,
she
boss,
told
tell me.
him to keep his mouth shut.
Everybody's not supposed to know that you weren't in training. Don't worry about it.
In many other countries, airport security workers are highly paid professionals. Many actually work for the government. You might be surprised to know that most of the people working at security checkpoints here in the U.S. are minimum wage workers with no previous security experience, and the turnover rate is enormous.
The pressure is to get another human being into that post. Not to wait for a background check, not to wait for any type of criminal check, not to have to go through any type of training process, but basically to get another warm body in that particular post.
When we went to Atlanta Hartsfield Airport, it was the same story. Our producer was hired this time as a baggage handler with no references checked.
You're going to work this back room today, okay?
All right.
And who is he employed by? Turns out his first offer came from Ogden, the very same company who employed him in New Jersey just 1 week before. Another Dateline producer was hired in Atlanta by a food catering company, Dobbs International. The company went beyond FAA regulations and called to check one of her references. Within a week, she was being trained on the job.
No, I just put the water in there.
Okay.
Where do these go?
But there was something else that happened here in Atlanta once we were hired by Dobbs that alarmed us. Our producers, like all Atlanta airport workers, must take a security test. One producer asked the Dobbs supervisor of new trainees if the test was important.
Is that serious?
Airport security?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's serious.
Serious enough that applicants can't start their jobs until they pass the test. We found that wasn't a problem, though. This supervisor admits that she routinely helps trainees cheat by giving out the answers before the test.
I've been up there in front of the manager of security 3 times too many because I be helping them with the test. And you get people that say something about it. People that I give the answer to.
What you're going to do now is go upstairs
And a supervisor at Ogden, the other company that hired us, told our producer he too could get help with the test if he needed
You
it.
got any problems with it, you don't know an answer, ask the instructor. They'll tell you the answer.
They'll tell us the answer just like that?
It's easy.
What do the authorities think about this? Angela Gittens is the head of aviation for Atlanta Hartsfield Airport.
One of our employees was given the answers in advance to the test that those employees are required to take. Is that appropriate procedure in your opinion?
No, absolutely not. Why would I try to justify something that doesn't make sense?
Dobbs, the company whose supervisor encouraged cheating on the test, declined to be interviewed. One person who helps workers cheat on a security test could be an isolated incident. But if you think just one person couldn't be a threat, think again.
The best technology in the world cannot defeat bad people if those bad people are part of the system.
And we saw that firsthand as part of the system. Remember our employee in Newark, hired without training or reference checks, working security? He was assigned to search carry-on bags. We wondered if 2 people working together, as terrorists often do, could sneak a weapon or explosives past a security checkpoint in a carry-on bag. In this case, a bag carried by a second Dateline employee. Watch what happens when our undercover producer goes to inspect it. Supervisors were present, but how well were they supervising?
Yeah, we'll check. I'm gonna check you out.
All electronic devices like this radio and this laptop computer are supposed to be turned on to make sure they are what they appear to be. But in reality, he checks nothing and deliberately clears them through security. Had these 2 been terrorists, it would be mission accomplished. What does the Federal Aviation Administration What does the Federal Aviation Administration think about our producer working in airport security with no reference check or training?
It's outrageous. It's intolerable.
Cahill Flynn is Associate Administrator of Security at the FAA.
We'll take strong action against people who are negligent in giving access to the secure area of an airport to people who have not been properly screened and properly trained for that.
What does the FAA plan to do about it?
The FAA is already taking strong action. I think that Dateline has performed a service by pointing out this.
And there's more. We found out how two people working together, even when spotted, can still evade security.
You're going to have to empty your pockets.
Once again, a second Dateline employee, the man in the black sweatshirt, walks through the metal detector. He's wearing a hidden camera, which sets off the alarm. Our undercover producer steps in and only makes it appear that he's scanning his accomplice with the handheld metal detector. Watch closely, and you can see he isn't pushing the button to activate the metal detector. So all of the electronic gear our Dateline passenger was wearing went undetected. Electronic gear that could have easily been something else.
Thank you.
A supervisor later spotted one of the cables and asked what it was.
What's that?
It's a Walkman thing. He wanted me through. I got to get undressed to take the whole thing off. It's a whole big thing.
But our producer comes to his accomplice's rescue and vouches for him.
Check that?
Yeah.
Turn the Walkman on. He checked it.
You have demonstrated that by infiltrating a person as a member of the security force, you were able to subvert the entire security system. The technology that was there, the metal detector, all of that, was useless, completely useless.
While this may surprise you, it doesn't surprise criminals. There are dozens of documented cases where airport employees have smuggled drugs and guns using inside knowledge. But what if it was a bomb smuggled past security instead? Is there easy access to aircraft where it might be left behind?
There are actual cases where terrorist bombs were planted in the cockpit of the aircraft.
And so we pushed on to see how far we could go.
And when we return, you'll see our undercover producer go just about anywhere on a plane he wants to.
What does this video say to you about the security? There's no security at all.
Dateline will continue after this message from your local station.
Hundreds of Texas families are being treated for it.
And tonight we'll hear from some of the people living with it and tell you what the government says about a mystery illness.
Now, we enjoyed the sunshine today, but it's going to be a turkey of a weekend.
I'd say I do when I'm between just making something and inventing something.
Returning to our story, you've seen how within days of being hired, our undercover producer was doing vital security work at one of the nation's busiest airports without a background check and without training. You've also seen how he and another Dateline producer could have evaded, if they'd wanted to, the security checks aimed at keeping the skies safe. But that's nothing compared to what you're about to see. Just how easy it could be to sneak drugs, weapons, or even a bomb aboard almost any plane. Once again, here's Chris Hansen.
December 1988, Pan Am Flight 103 blown out of the sky over Lockerbie, Scotland. Investigators blame plastic explosives hidden in a tape player planted in checked luggage. January 1995, hijackers posing as airline workers smuggle assault rifles and hand grenades aboard an Air France jet. 54 hours of terror would follow before commandos rescue the passengers. April 1986, a bomb explodes on TWA Flight 840 over Athens. Police say it was smuggled on board by a passenger on a previous flight. All grim testimony that airlines are a target of terrorists, and terrorists are good at what they do. And regardless of what caused TWA Flight 800 to explode this summer, it was a wake-up call for the aviation industry. Many airports went on high alert, more scrutiny for passengers and airport employees. But 4 months later, what has really changed? At Hartsfield Airport in Atlanta, our Dateline producer was handling hundreds of pieces of luggage a day. He He had unlimited access to bags heading directly to the aircraft. He disturbed nothing, but we wanted to see if anyone was watching as he unzipped pockets and stuck his hands inside. There was no visible surveillance, and no one stopped him. Even an Ogden Aviation supervisor admitted baggage handlers have the access and the opportunity to be a threat.
Nothing's going to stop you from having that bag go through the x-ray. Now we know it's clean. Pull it to the side, put a bomb in it. Nothing's going to prevent that. Nothing.
Remember, our producer got this job with no background checks. And with that job came this ID card. How critical is this simple picture ID when it comes to airport safety? The FAA's own security tape warns of its importance. A tape often shown to new airport workers.
If you see a person with no ID or with the improper ID on the AOA, challenge them immediately. Report the offender to your supervisor.
We wonder just how often that really happens. At least 3 times, in fact, we were stopped and questioned in Newark, but we were never turned in to the proper authorities. Once after boarding an airplane without the proper ID.
You don't have a proper ID. They haven't given me one.
We were simply told to stay off the airplanes. We were stopped a second time on the tarmac.
You got your ID, man? Right here. You gotta have the other one. Where's the other one?
This time we were escorted away.
How'd you get down here?
The third time, we were warned of a possible fine.
Let's report authorities. They're fining people. If you don't have this, you get fined.
But instead of being reported to the proper authorities, our producer was allowed to go on his way, right out to the tarmac, where he had no business being. And watch what happens when he doesn't have the security code to open this door. He simply asks a ticket agent, and a glance at his ID gets him the code.
Okay, thanks.
Now he was able to board an airplane, even though he didn't have the proper ID. Another time, he walked along the tarmac, up the back stairs of an airplane, and down the aisle, where he encountered a clearly anxious flight attendant. But seeing his ID, even though it wasn't the right ID, calmed any fears.
I'm glad you got an ID card on there.
Oh, because you would have...
That's right. Could have pokey with you.
Finally, someone did report his suspicious behavior to his Ogden supervisor.
Somebody told me you was down there on the planes, drinking water, going out the back door. You gotta have special clearance to be on the planes like that.
See, I didn't know that. No one's told me what I can or can't do, really.
But she didn't report him to airport authorities. She simply told him not to do it again.
If ain't nobody on the plane, go on the damn plane.
She apparently didn't want anyone else to know about the incident.
They called me. And I'm glad they called the office. They called and told me, so hope it don't go no further.
But more often than not, our producer had unlimited access to places he should never have been allowed to go. Terrorism and security expert Brian Jenkins.
An unauthorized individual with a little bit of thought, a little bit of nerve, can get inside an airplane. An airplane that a few minutes or a few hours from that moment is going to be filled with perhaps several hundred passengers.
And that's exactly what our producer is able to do. We're not going to show you every detail, but watch how he wanders freely throughout Newark Airport for 10 days. As an insider, he now has access to several airplanes. Watch as he passes some 10 other airport employees without once being questioned. He even offers to lend a hand to this food service worker. He walks casually past unsuspecting flight crews, in and out of cockpits. He now has access to the hiding places a terrorist could use to conceal a bomb or a weapon. Alone in this airplane lavatory, it's obvious how simple it would be for him to leave something behind. He opens overhead compartments and kitchen drawers where he might also plant some sort of device. Perhaps the same device he helped smuggle through security earlier. Remember, our device was harmless, but it could have easily been a weapon or an explosive. Back in Atlanta, we had the proper ID, but remember, it was an ID issued without a background check. Our producer had unlimited access to airplanes like this Varig Airlines jet. As a baggage handler, what was he doing away from his assigned post and in the cabin of an airplane? He again showed how easy it would be to hide what might be a bomb, under a seat, in the lavatory, even in the cockpit. In this particular case, he was able to linger on this plane for nearly a half an hour. No one questioned, no one even noticed. He had so much time, he actually left the airplane to get another video camera. We asked Carlos Muzio, general manager of Varig Airlines in North America, to look at our undercover videotape.
What does this video say to you about the security?
There's no security at all.
Should a baggage handler have that kind of access?
Not at all. That's showing again the big hole, or the big Swiss cheese that Atlanta International Airport is.
The big Swiss cheese?
The Swiss cheese.
Our producer also had unlimited access to the exterior of the plane. He was careful not to interfere with the aircraft, but watch him take his beeper, a small plastic device with a battery, and put it near the landing gear well. This in an effort to demonstrate how easily he could hide it there. Apparently, there was no surveillance system in place to monitor this very suspicious activity, because they surely would have stopped him from doing this. What does Ogden have to say about hiring our producer without a background check and his ability to wander through secure areas for 2 weeks at 2 different airports? After we started asking questions, Ogden turned itself in to the Atlanta Aviation Department. Ogden officials refused an on-camera interview, but said in a letter, in situations where Ogden becomes aware of potential non-compliance, management is quick to investigate and remedy the situation. In all instances, Ogden alerts the appropriate authorities. Angela Gittens is the general manager of aviation at the Atlanta Hartsfield Airport.
Does it worry you that somebody was able to get a job with absolutely no reference checks and was able to have access to an airplane?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why we have revoked that company's privileges.
Now the aviation department is itself examining the background checks of all Ogden employees at the Atlanta airport. And because of what Dateline found, certain Ogden workers can no longer work without supervision.
So now when one of these Ogden employees needs to get in one of these secure areas, somebody has to escort them?
That's right.
In each and every case?
That's right.
You may be wondering just who is responsible for protecting airports and airplanes. It turns out a lot of people are. The FAA makes the rules and has the power to punish those who break them. Airport authorities oversee some operations locally, but the security of the airplane at the gate is up to the airlines, which hire companies to do the job for them. Coincidentally, in both Newark and Atlanta, Dateline producers worked at Delta terminals. Delta refused Dateline's repeated requests for an on-camera interview, but told us in a letter, overall responsibility for airport security falls under the jurisdiction of the FAA. Delta also said it's investigating the security breaches we found. But Varig Airlines was eager to talk to us.
What worries you most about what you saw here? That someone's got access to my property in which I'm paying for all security possible and complying with all the security that are set forth by the FAA, and suddenly anyone can go inside an aircraft.
Did you feel violated when you saw this?
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, because it's, first of all, it's like someone robbing your house.
At Newark Airport, where a Dateline producer also roamed freely on airplanes, we tried to talk to the Port Authority, which oversees operations there. They refused an on-camera interview. How does the FAA respond to all of this? Caw Flynn is the agency's associate administrator for security.
This particular producer was also able to gain access to airplanes, the cockpit, the cabin area. He basically had unlimited access. Is that appropriate?
Absolutely not. It's more than inappropriate. It is negligent. It is intolerable, and we will not tolerate it. We will take strong action against the people involved.
At first, Brian Jenkins was concerned about us broadcasting our videotape, but Jenkins, who spent a career studying terrorism, told us he now plans to show our broadcast to the Vice President's Commission on Aviation Safety and Security.
I would hope that by the broadcast of this, that in effect is sufficiently tragic on its own merits that people would say, that is not acceptable. The system has to be made better. We know it has to be done. let's make sure it gets done.
Brian Jenkins tells us one reason the Gore Commission was able to issue its recommendations so quickly following the crash of TWA Flight 800 this summer was because, in fact, many of the same suggestions had been made by an earlier commission, the one that convened 8 years ago following the bombing of Pan Am 103. We'll be continuing our investigation of airport security in the weeks ahead, and we'll bring you the results on a future Dateline.